Hey guys, I told you that I would do a video about how to write your personal essay that's due on Friday. So I've been kind of talking to you about it on and off over the 6 weeks that your writing task for this 6 weeks would be to write a personal essay and that it would reflect um, the essential question, how do we engage with others while staying true to ourselves? And so there's no particular topic that you have to write about, but this is the assignment. Write a personal essay. This unit focuses on how we relate to people who are different from us. For this writing task, you will write a personal essay about engaging with others despite differences. So you're going to come up with something from your own life, a time when you had to, and some of you are probably going to say, I don't know what to write about, but I don't think there's any single person in the world that this has not happened to. It's just a part of life. And that is having to get along with or interact with or having some sort of interaction with someone with whom we disagree about something or someone who is very different from us, someone that maybe we feel uncomfortable with or a situation that we felt uncomfortable with. Um, it could be something as simple as working in a group in a classroom with someone that you didn't know very well or someone who's very different from you. So, a well written personal essay that you can use as a mentor text is the selection that we read this 6 weeks called By Any Other Name, where the author had to go to school in the British school as a little Indian, a young Indian girl from India. She had to go to this British school where the headmistress didn't want to pronounce her name and changed her name. So she had to get along with people who had a very different culture than she did, or she had to try to get along with people who had a very different culture than she. So you're going to write an essay, and it doesn't have to be something that earth shattering, something that dramatic or traumatic. It can be something pretty simple. So this is a read, think, and write prompt, just like they do on the STAR test. You may not remember that, or you didn't take a STAR test last year, but I know the eighth grade ones were set up that way too, or the seventh grade, as a read, write, and think. So think about this, read this. Engaging with those who are different from you can be difficult, but it can also create a new understanding of who you are. Think carefully about the essential question for the unit. How do we engage with others while staying true to ourselves? Now think about events in your own experience that relate to this topic. And then here's your actual prompt. Write a personal essay that explores a time when you had to decide how to interact with others. The author in the story, By Any Other Name, I'm trying to remember what her name was. The teacher called her Cynthia. I can't remember what her name was. Anyway, she had to learn how to interact with others. So be sure to write an introduction that will grab the reader's interest. You've learned how to write an essay. So all of those basic skills that you've already learned, you'll use those and hopefully improve upon them. Describe a single meaningful experience in vivid detail. Use appropriate verb tenses to orient the reader in time. And we talked about that when we read that, how she used that past perfect tense. You may want to do that. But anyway, you could go back and review that and just kind of look at what tense you use, but you'll probably mostly use past tense. Okay. Um, don't shift tenses. That's one of the main things that I see in student writing is shifting from present tense to past tense, even within a sentence or within a paragraph. So you need to stay within the same verb tense and conclude with some sort of insight into what you've gained from the experience, some sort of insight that you've gained from the experience. And I'm going to pause it for just a second if I can so that I can close my door and I'll be right back. Okay, there was a roaming gang of loud students in the hallway just now. So this has a whole step by step planning guide for you. It's really, really a good program that we have in our textbooks to help you write. There's a whole writing studio to help you with your writing. Um, And then we also have something called Writable that you may have used a little bit last year. But this one is not in Writable, but it's very similar to it. So you're going to brainstorm. Now, I will tell you, you don't have to come up with 3 different things. Maybe you already know what you're going to write about. If you do, then just go ahead and put it in one of these boxes. If you don't, then just brainstorm some ideas. So I might say the experience or event when I was a kid moving from Texas to Louisiana in elementary school was a really big change when I was like going from kindergarten to first grade, and going to a new school and not knowing anybody, and it was a very different. The schools were just very different. The community were very different, and so then I might write what I learned from it. That I could make new friends anywhere. And who would be interested in that story? I don't know. Maybe young people going through the same thing. So obviously that's just right off the top of my head. That's not a great example. And I would look at that and I go, I don't really think I want to write my essay over that, but it's an idea. I'm just starting to think about, okay, engaging with others while staying true to myself. So you be thinking of some ideas and put them in the chart unless you already know exactly what you want to write about. Okay. So anything that would relate to that idea. So maybe a time when your friends were all doing a certain thing and you didn't want to participate in the activities that they were doing for whatever reason. Maybe it was something that you just didn't believe in or your parents didn't want you to do. And so how did you interact with your friends while staying true to yourself by saying, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go there, or I'm not going to drink, or whatever it might be. So anyway, that's how you brainstorm and come up with an idea. So make sure that your idea is something that you really want to write about before you decide on it, because you don't really want to get started on the essay and then say, I don't want to write about this. I want to change my topic. You can do that, but it just takes up a lot of your time. So it's better to spend more time on the planning part and make sure that you're sure that's what you want to write about before you get started. Okay. So you might want to review the notes that you've taken in your response log and think about some of the ideas that you talked about, the common thread that ran through the selections that we read this 6 weeks. So to help you choose the most promising idea from your brainstorming chart, consider the readers. While reading some memoirs can be exciting as someone looking, can be as exciting as watching someone look at themselves in the mirror, your personal essay will be much more interesting. How? So that's just a way of saying some memoirs are not that interesting if it's something that you're not interested in. So if someone writes a memoir about their time that they spent, in Antarctica, and that's something that just doesn't interest you, then you may not find that very interesting. So you'll use vivid details and try to think of something that maybe the audience, of course, I'm going to read it, but I would think about people my own age, people your own age might be interested in learning from. All right, so now you're going to get to your personal essay timeline. So what is your chosen experience? Okay. Then you're going to tell how it began. In what context was this in? So I was in 8th grade. I just moved to a new school, and whatever the background information that people might need. And then a key detail and how that detail suits my purpose and my audience. Now here's another, how it began, and what is the key detail from that? What is the key thing that you want people to know about from the very beginning? So the key detail might be You just moved from one school to another, you didn't know anybody, and you're shy. And so the key detail might be that you're really shy and it was really hard for you to, get into a new group of friends or to make new friends. And how does that detail suit my purpose and my audience? Well, I might say young people, teenagers could all identify with this because it's something they've probably been through at some point. And now you move on to what happened. Okay. What is the context? What was the key detail of what happened? And how did that detail suit my purpose and my audience? So, how is that the details that you're including? How does it suit your purpose and your audience means um, you're not going to tell every single detail of what happened. You're going to tell the details that you think would be most interesting or most helpful to people your own age, if that's who your audience is. And then you do the same thing with how it ended. And then at the end, you reflect on the event's significance. Remember at the end of By Any Other Name, she says, that happened to a girl named Santha, and I was never named Cynthia, and I never was that interested in her anyway. So that is her reflection on that. She's basically saying it didn't really affect me that much more after that because that person that happened to just wasn't even me. They changed my name. And how the lesson suits my purpose and my audience. So what might other people learn from it as well? Okay. So after you've done that, notice that you're just telling the beginning, the middle, and the end of a story. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you want to start out with something that gets the audience's attention. A lot of times I'll start out a story with, I start out kind of like with a cliffhanger and then come back to it later. Like, I never imagined that this is the way that things would turn out. But a year later, as I think back on it, I understand what a significant event that was in my life, or something like that. Okay. You could go back to, and I'm going to go back quickly to By Any Other Name, because you're using that as a mentor text. So you might want to open that so that you can see how she told her story. So a good way to become a better writer is to just emulate good writers. So she starts out at the Anglo-Indian Day School in Zarinabad, to which my sister and I were sent when she was 8 and I was 5 and a half. At the Anglo-Indian Day School in Zarinabad, to which my sister and I were sent when she was 8 and I was 5 and a half, they changed our names. She gets right to the point of her story. They changed our names. And then she goes on to tell the story. And it's not very long. It's probably longer than what yours will be. But it's not all that long. So you might want to just go back and revisit how she writes this and use it as a mentor text. So after you've got your planning done, then you're going to develop a draft. Refer to your timeline as well as any notes that you might have on your from the unit, and you're just going to begin typing your draft here. And you're going to use this mentor text By Any Other Name. And this kind of helps you. The author comments on an event that she has described choosing vivid words like remarkable and disbelieving. So what you should do is use Merriam-Webster. That link, I always keep I think I've got it bookmarked. Yes. And you can use the thesaurus part. So instead of using boring words, if you have a word that you think, that's just kind of an everyday word, I want to come up with something different, you can look it up in the thesaurus and use better, more vivid, more descriptive words. The author also uses the time clues for a short time and then to indicate the order of events. So you might want to look up words that indicate order of events. And so, do you see this? There's you guys know that on Google. There's all kinds of things to help you with your writing. Until that time, in the first place, henceforth. I don't know if I would use that. If it doesn't sound like something that you would say, that's a little bit too formal. So you need to think about, is you're writing formal or informal. Preceding that means before that, at the outset. So, and then there's a whole bunch of other ones. So make sure you use connecting words. And since this is a chronological event, a story that you're telling, um, then you need to use connecting words that indicate the time sequence. The order of events in your essay should be clear, but don't get bogged down in tiny little details. You want to tell, there may be one detail that you want to expand upon a moment of significance, but you don't have to tell every single detail. I'll give you an example. So sometimes students will write about, the time they had a four-wheeler wreck or something like that. And they'll say, my cousins Joe, Bob, John, Jenny, Jake, and Blake and I were all doing this. I'm like, you don't need to include all of the names of everybody that was there. Just say a group of my cousins and I were going to ride four wheelers. So I hope that makes sense. Like, you don't have to tell every single little detail, but when you get to the climax of your story, the most important part, the turning point, or the point of the most interesting part, that maybe you'll slow that moment down a little bit and tell it in greater detail. You know how when something happens that's embarrassing or important, sometimes like it slows down in your mind, and it kind of goes in slow motion. You can do that in your writing. So here's a revision guide, and I'm not going to read through all of this, but it's kind of like a checklist for revising your work. And then there's with a partner part. You might want to use some of these words from your academic vocabulary for the unit, but I'm not going to require you to. Okay? And then here's some more information about verb tenses at the bottom. And then here's your scoring guide. So this is how it's going to be graded as a 1, 2, 3, or 4 on organization and progression, development of ideas, and use of language and conventions. So you might want to read the 3s and 4 part of it to see, what I'll be looking for that when I'm grading it. So that's at the bottom, your rubric, your scoring guide. So this is where you type your essay, and you're more than welcome to do this in a Google Doc and then copy it and paste it here if you'd like to do that as well. But I'm just assuming this is the first time I've used the writing part, so I'm assuming that then when you turn your assignment in that I'll be able to see it. But we may go ahead and do it a different way and do it in a Google Doc. We'll see. Okay, but this is where you can type your draft and then you could copy and paste it into a Google Doc. I'll let you know more about that on Wednesday or Thursday of how I want you to turn it in. I'll have to type out an essay as the test user and see what it looks like on my end of the grading. All right, so get your rough draft done and revise it and edit it, and then we'll figure out exactly how I want you to turn that in. As long as it's done in here, you'll be good. All right, if you have any questions, let me know. I will be happy to answer them either in person or by email. And remember, this is due this Friday. What's the date? This Friday, the 18th. That's the end of the 6 weeks. So make sure that you get this written and turned in. As far as length, I'm not going to give you a specific length, just however long it would take to tell this story. But I don't think you would be able to write less than or fewer than 500 words. Okay, and you know how to do a word count on a Google Doc. But I would think it would need to be somewhere between 500 and 1,000 words, something like that. And it could be more. All right, I will see you soon.